Welcome to the Orthodontic Pearls podcast, where we share tips and tricks to better your clinic, business, and life. Today we have our honored guest, Dr. Bryan Horsley, as we discuss the value of hard work, how to stay driven with purpose, the benefits of buyers groups, and clinical excellence pearls. And now your hosts of the podcast, Drs. Chris Teeters, Brian Anderson, and Andy Sarpadar.
Welcome back to the Orthodontic Pearls podcast, the show where passion meets precision and community comes first. I'm your host, Dr. Andy Sarpadar, joined as always by the Tesla twins, Drs. Brian Anderson and Chris Teeters.
That's a new name. I haven't heard that one yet.
Today, we're sitting down with someone who's not just helping shape smiles, but reshaping the future of private practice orthodontics. Bryan Horsley is a board-certified orthodontist born in Idaho and trained at the University of Louisville and Medical College of Virginia. He's been serving families in Utah for years through his thriving private practices in South Jordan and Tooele, where his focus on clinical excellence and personalized care has earned him a loyal patient base. He's also a co-founder of Premier Orthodontic Practices, a doctor-led organization built to protect the integrity of private practice while unlocking the power of scale. And yes, somewhere between bracket placement and business building, he found time to trade in his BMW for a Range Rover, which frankly, we're still trying to process. I don't get that, Brian, but maybe you can defend yourself here. But from Deer Valley to Denmark and Damon Braces to dinner in Kyoto, Bryan brings intentionality to everything he does, and today we'll explore it all. So welcome to the show, Bryan. How are we doing today?
Doing great. Thank you for that great introduction, and thank you for having me on your podcast. I just want to tell you guys that I'm a big fan of all three of you, and I appreciate all that you're doing to elevate our profession and to inspire fellow orthodontists. So thank you. Thank you for all you do.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you being here. We're going to get to that BMW question in just a little bit here. But
now, Andy, I really appreciated that alliteration in the intro from dinner to Denmark. The D's you had going on there, that was slick, man. That was
all about
you couldn't have written that. There's no way you wrote that, dude. There's no way you wrote that.
You're calling me out on this now. All right, I do have some script writers.
He definitely wrote Tesla twins. That was a jab at us for being a fellow BMW driver. That was intentional.
Also an alliteration.
I just want to say something real quick. So Bryan, Dr. Horsley, he practices in Salt Lake City area. South Jordan is like a suburb of Salt Lake City, and I'm in the Salt Lake City area. And so I know Bryan, fairly well. I've rubbed shoulders with him a little bit. And I think it's so great, Bryan, that you're on the podcast today, and Andy, that you put in the work to make this happen. Those of us that are doing the podcast and those of us that are in Facebook groups and kind of, we have some visibility that is neither here nor there, really, honestly. Sometimes that's perceived as valuable when maybe it's not as valuable as it really is. And what I think is cool is somebody like Bryan, who's really out there doing this, leading by example. You're, an icon, I think, for orthodontists in terms of clinical excellence, in terms of systems, and of course, with private practice too. So I think it's actually awesome that you're here sharing this stuff, super, super high value, because a lot of times the same people have a voice, certain people kind of have a mouth. That's kind of what we do. We're sort of just a mouth, and we hope to, be like a doer too in practice. But I think, you're a doer, man, and you don't, seek the spotlight or seek the limelight. But the things that you share, I follow you on social media and listen to you lecture before, and the things that you share are always really high value and just awesome stuff. So anyway, I'm super excited to have you on the show today. And Andy, thanks for setting that up.
Well, that means a lot coming from you. Thank you, Bryan. I feel the same about you. And I appreciate the three of you and what you're doing as well. So thank you.
All right, well, let's jump right into it. I want to get in touch with your origins, Bryan. So let's start from the beginning. What inspired you to pursue orthodontics, and how did your early career shape the kind of leader you are today?
If we really want to start from the beginning, I grew up in a little small town in Idaho, southeast Idaho. My dad was the mayor and the mortician of this little town.
Mayor and mortician?
Mayor and mortician. So I have some crazy mortician stories. If we had more time, I would share some of those, because lots of funny experiences. My wife was my high school sweetheart, so she and I had quite a few funny experiences during those high school years with the funeral home and all of that. But yes, mayor and mortician. From an early age, my parents just really emphasized the value of hard work and human connection. And in fact, there are 6 kids in our family. And that hard work and that inspiration that, that my mom was constantly pushing us towards. 5 of the 6 of us are actually doctors of some sort. Wow. And the last one, the baby of the family, actually took over my dad's mortuary.
Oh, interesting. Also the mayor, or no?
No. Okay. I'm not sure people would vote for him, but he's a great mortician. It's funny, just growing up, my parents, they would intentionally make sure that we learned how to work hard. And I think that's such an important thing for all of us as parents to do the same. But one of the things that we did is I would, they'd have all of us take an animal to the fair every year. So I would take a sheep to the fair every year. So from age 8 to 18, I took a sheep to the fair, and you can imagine the amount of work that would take throughout a summer. You'd have to water and feed and consistently, right? So a lot of times my friends would be asking to go do things, and like, no, I've got to take care of my sheep, of all things. But water feeds, you'd have to exercise these sheep. Half the time, these sheep wouldn't want to exercise, so my dad would be dragging them around the backyard with the tractor. But we all learned so much value in that, and of hard work and just effort, and it was a really great time in my life. One of the funny things is whenever we take these sheep to the fair, we look around and everybody else had these sheep that were bright white, and for some reason, after 10 years of taking sheep to the fair, we never figured out how to get our sheep white. We go to show these sheep, and they were always like a urine yellow. And so I always knew the Horsley sheep; they were the yellow sheep. But we would sell these sheep, and that money. I always call my wife a 10 sheep woman, because that money from those 10 sheep is what I use to actually purchase her first wedding ring.
Oh, I was so worried you were going to go in a different direction.
Yeah.
What is that? That's a Johnny Lingo reference. I recognize that one then.
Brian might pick up on that.
Some of our listeners might know that one.
Anyway, and I also moved sprinkler pipe, which is just a crazy, crazy task, right? And we would have a fireworks stand. And I worked at a grocery store, and I mowed lawns, and I was a forest firefighter. All of these in my teenage years. I broke racehorses and worked at a restaurant, and I just learned the value of hard work at an early age, and it's been able to translate into a successful adult life as well. And I feel like with those valuable lessons as a kid, I just learned that you really can put your hard work and effort is so valuable, and you put your heart into anything, you can achieve it. But to answer your question, from an early age, I wanted to be a medical doctor. And in fact, I was one of those nerdy kids that for Christmas asked for a chemistry set, asked for a microscope. I would look at different bacteria on the slides, all that kind of thing. So that was really the direction I was going my entire childhood, was that medical doctor realm. I went off to school, and when I was in college, I took a pre-med class. And in that pre-med class, one of the requirements was to shadow a bunch of medical doctors. And as I shadowed these medical doctors, every one of the medical doctors that I shadowed said if they could do it all over again, they would have done dentistry. And I'm like, are you kidding? Relatable. I would have never thought dentistry. It just was never even on my radar. So I took a pre-dental class the next year, shadowed a bunch of dentists, and had an exactly opposite experience. Every one of them loved what they did. In fact, I shadowed this 80-year-old guy, this dentist that looked like he was about ready to die at any moment. And he said, I'm gonna do this until I die. I love it. It's who I am. Wow. I love it. I'm passionate about it. It really struck a chord with me. The real moment of clarity for me was shadowing an orthodontist. I had never had orthodontics myself. I walked into this orthodontic practice, and it was back before all the digital and electronic stuff. And so he had just had this huge cork board, and this cork board had before and afters of all these patients. Mm-hmm. I could visibly see the change in their confidence level and in their attractiveness and all of that. And it was like the heavens opened, and God said, "This is what you're supposed to do with your life." It was the craziest moment. And from that point, I've never looked back. It's the greatest profession in the world. I am so grateful that I was led this direction. We just celebrated last year. We celebrated 20 years of practice, and it was a year. It was a year of a lot of reflection, and I just feel so blessed and guided into what I chose to do. I love this profession. To answer your question about what have I learned as a leader, I think as a leader, what I feel is important is that you stay positive, and that you lead out in all things. I think it's hard for us to ask, our associates or our team members to do things that we aren't willing to do. Yeah. And so I think that that's a critical aspect of being a good leader is staying positive and leading out in all things. And I've learned in this whole process too, after doing this for 21 years, that probably the greatest assets in my practice is my team. I don't know how I do it without them, and I'm sure you guys feel the same. I mean, they're everything, and I try every day to make sure that they know how much that they're loved and appreciated.
Well, that's awesome, Bryan. I think that many of us can relate to a lot of aspects of that story. Maybe not the sheep part of it, but definitely the
speak for yourself, man.
Oh, maybe Bryan. Yeah,
that wouldn't surprise me.
Point of order: because we have two Bryans on the show, we're going to be calling Bryan Anderson. Did we land on Magnum? Yeah, are we going to be doing Tom Selleck? Tommy Boy? What do you prefer? Bryan?
Andy, maybe Andy.
Well, that's just as confusing. Yeah.
Then there are two of us.
Yeah. So, well, anyway, thanks for that story, Bryan. Again, very relatable. I think a lot of us share in that journey. I know personally, it was a similar thing. I wanted to go into medicine first. Everyone told me dentistry, and then orthodontics was just the natural fit. You mentioned a little bit about your inspiration coming from seeing those before and afters. And I want to say, we were talking before the show about your social media. Horsley Orthodontics has recently posted, several cases, but one really stuck out to me. And it's kind of the quintessential Damon case. You start off with a little bit of crowding, some narrow arches. I noticed some scalloping of the lower incisors. And a lot of us look at that and we're like, oh man, we got to extract. I don't like the look of, especially the gum tissue. That's the thing that scared me the most. But I'm looking at your finish there, and you got, it looks like about 6-8 millimeters of expansion. The posterior teeth are completely upright. The gum tissue looks healthy. What really blew me away is that scalloping that I noticed on the lower incisors is now pretty much gone, or certainly it's those teeth are in a better position than before. And you did that non-extraction. Can you tell us a little bit about your approach to clinical, and maybe share some pearls on how you're able to achieve these kinds of smiles?
Well, that's kind. Thank you for the compliments. Being in an incredibly competitive area like we are in Utah, I can actually look out my window and see 3 orthodontists from my window. We have 5 orthodontists.
I get it. Chris and I get it.
Yeah, I think Arizona's the same way, right?
Yeah.
So all of us can appreciate this. But I think when I counted a few years ago, we had 32 orthodontists within a 5 mile radius and 5 within a mile radius. So very competitive area. One thing I've really focused on in my practice to set myself apart is clinical outcomes, and to have those be absolutely consistent. So a few years ago, probably a decade ago, I started looking at the smiles that I really liked. What are the smiles that I think are the most attractive? And I started really delving into what characteristics I wanted to have be my signature smile. And then I really wanted to just go after that. So I appreciate that you said that. We really work on that smile width, right? Just getting that really broad smile. We're very intentional about that. The Damon system, of course, helps to achieve that a lot, I think, in a lot of aspects. One of those is broadening the wires out to the level that is necessary to get that arch expansion. And then, a lot of times, so you don't get that flare, what you have to do is have them wear posterior vertical elastics just to help bring those teeth in, so you're not getting that posterior flare. In looking at that, we created what we call the Horsley smile, or our signature smile, which is the broad smile. We really focus on smile arc. So we're very, very intentional about creating a smile arc, teeth, mimicking the shape of the lower lip line. We really focus on the shape of the tooth itself too. So we do enamel contouring and gingival contouring on every single patient that we have come through our practice.
We've started doing that too. Maybe not the gingiva every time, but certainly the enamoplasty. I think that is the icing on the cake.
It is, and I think one thing with the enamoplasty is in our practice, we do that before we place brackets, because I think it helps in bracket positioning. We do it again at Pano Repo, and we do it at the final. But I think the important thing with this in achieving consistent clinical outcomes is making sure that you know what you're trying to achieve. So we've identified that. That's our signature smile. And we really go after it. I mean, we talk about it in our consultation. We talk about it throughout treatment. We talk about the Horsley smile and what the elements or characteristics are of that smile throughout the entire process. And then, we're constantly complimenting them too at the very end with their final records of, look at this Horsley smile, look how gorgeous this is. And it's become kind of a brand in the communities that we serve. So people come in already saying, hey, I finally just decided to take the plunge. I want a Horsley smile. But then we, like I said, it's educating the patient on what they know that they can achieve. And then I've got 3 associates that work for me. So the challenge is making sure that those associates and myself are always on the same page, right? Because we're all seeing the patients. Yeah. So one of the aspects of that is we take photographs on, of course, every patient, just like you guys would. At the very end of treatment, those photos get put into an Asana board, which is our, it's kind of a management software as it pertains to organization. And in that, every one of those patients is put in there, and I move those patients from there into different columns. One is, this is good for social media. We met all the criteria. We literally have hundreds of patients that are just waiting to be posted in our social media because they've met that criteria. And then we have those that maybe don't work out as well. Just like Bryan said, it's not every case doesn't always turn out the way that we want it to. And so I move that over into a discussion needed category, and we talk about those things. So great. We are constantly inspiring each other to be better. We might look at a case and I'll say, hey, what happened to the smile arc on this patient? What could we have done differently to achieve a better smile arc? Why is this patient not as, is their smile not as wide as it could have been? Let's look at this and figure out what we did that didn't achieve that. And because of that, it drives all of us to be better and to be looking at those elements of that signature smile at all times throughout treatment. That's the drive. I was told by, my orthodontic staff or faculty when I was in my orthodontic residency, they saw my perfectionism and they said, hey, after a few years, you're going to let go of some of that. You're going to have to. You can't get perfection. And I will tell you, after doing this for 21 years, I have never been more meticulous and more OCD in my practice at any point in my career. Fortunately, it's turned the other way. I know it can be achieved. And so I work really hard on every case to try to achieve that.
I love that.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I really like that idea of the feedback. And I think that can be a miss. I know I try my best to evaluate. We don't have an associate, but it can be really challenging when things get busy, and your staff is overwhelmed to get that done. So really kudos to you for finding a system that has worked with you, because I think that feedback is so critical. If we're not evaluating our cases at the end, we're not really knowing how we finished. I mean, when I go back and look at it, just like you said, there's some cases where I'm like, we really nailed it. And I want to see, what did I do differently in this case? Was the compliance better? Was it, did I broaden the arch wires at just the right time for just the right velocity? Or in a case where I look at it and I'm like, I don't think that quite reached my standards. What was the reason for it? Sometimes it's simply because the patient burns out and they just need to, they're done. But other times, maybe I didn't get that arch width I was looking for because my mechanics weren't as sound, or because I, missed a step or something. So it's, I think that you don't learn those things unless you critically evaluate.
Haven't signed up for MOPC yet? Listen to this testimonial from the Braces guy, Dr. Grant Collins, on why you won't want to miss our 7th annual conference this October.
Oh man, if you don't come to the Mother of Pearls, you're going to miss an opportunity to connect with so many great people, learn a ton of great stuff. It's a very intimate, amazing session that we get to have with each other. I hope everybody gets to come out next year. It's going to be amazing next year too. We've got the educational side with lots of great speakers, great information, but also a fun side that is like coming together with friends, hanging out, doing fun things together. Not only in the conferences, but outside too. We're talking to each other about everything all the time. We really connect with people. It does feel like community. As far as the party goes, it's fun to get together. Getting an opportunity to play with the band Relapse was super fun. I mean, they bring such great energy. We all come and have a great time. I feel like a lot of the offices that work in orthodontics work really hard. So we come to learn, but we also come to have fun and connect with each other too. Next year's gonna be great. I mean, they're gonna have this in NASA, gonna have this in Florida. Like, I'm looking forward to it. I wouldn't miss that one at all. It really is a very unique conference. It's quickly growing to one of my favorites.
Register today as seats are limited and we sell out every year. Learn more by visiting orthodonticpearls.org on your computer or smartphone today.
Yeah, well, so I wanted to say what's coming up for me is the unexamined life is not worth living. Socrates said that. The unexamined life is not worth living. So to me, what Bryan's doing is he's putting that into practice. Like his orthodontic life, he's examining. He's examining the good cases. What do you learn from that? He's examining the cases that don't turn out so great. What do you learn from that? Because if we want to achieve anything worthwhile, we have to operate within reality. And reality includes the good and the bad. This world includes everything, right? You can't, we try to separate these things artificially in our minds. Like, well, I'll just kind of fudge, like I'll cherry pick, I'll pick the good cases, but I'll kind of just, the bad ones I'll neglect and I'll just sort of put it on the patient that they didn't do a good job. And so I don't want to, because I don't want to see anything that I might have done that I could have done better, right? Human beings, we all have a tendency to do that. So what I respect and what I love, and I think it's a true principle that every person can live by and anchor yourself to, is examine your life. And that, and in orthodontics, that means examine your cases, examine the good ones, examine the bad ones. Don't be afraid to go there. You don't have an image that you need to protect. You don't have, I mean, of course, we all care about image, reputation, et cetera. But I'm talking about more spiritual, principled living, that if you can examine that stuff and if you can dive deep and if you're not afraid of it, that's where growth happens. So I'm always super impressed with that, and that you've managed to not just write it off like, oh, well, yeah, they were right. Real life's busy and I can just kind of start neglecting that. But that you've actually like stuck to this mindset of, hey, no, this can be achieved. I've seen it. I've done it. And it just takes work. How can I make this operate at a greater scale? I think that's very difficult to do. Very difficult to do. I mean, there's a lot of inertia that has to be overcome to do something like that. So I think that's a really great example. And one thing I was thinking of that I wanted to touch base on is this idea of our kids. So you mentioned, Bryan, growing up and working hard, having interactions with animals, you're taking the sheep, to the fair, whatever, and you're doing manual labor, you're working hard, you learn the value of hard work. And what I see, and I try to be conscious of this as a parent, is you observe people who have achieved great success in their life because they were raised in a way where there was hardship, but it was structured hardship. And then we achieve this relative affluence or comfort level. And if we're not careful, our kids don't get the same experience that helped us to be successful. And so in some ways, we're actually doing them a disservice if we want, I want to shelter my kids. My life was hard growing up. I had to do all these things, and I don't want my kids to have to do that. I just want to have them we're actually doing them a disservice. We're enabling them. Well, we're disabling them actually, but we're enabling them in their disability, I guess is a way to say it.
Right.
By just dumping things into their lap. And especially when we can say, I achieved this because I grew up a certain way and I had to do stuff. And I'll say, so I practice part-time in Elko, Nevada. And my fiance, soon to be wife, we're getting married in a week, is from there. One thing that I'm always really impressed with is these ranching families, kids. They are sharp, man.
Absolutely.
And they could be 12 years old. They wear their rubber bands. They keep their teeth clean for the most part, right? This is a generalization, but it's more true than not, I would say. And they are respectful. They're grateful. You don't get the feeling they just got dragged in there and they're just like, oh, here my mom brought me. You get the feeling that they think this is a privilege to be here. Not everyone gets to do this. My parents are investing. Thank you, mom and dad. Hey, thank you, sir. Thank you, doctor. Thank you. I mean, there's just this level of personal responsibility that to me shows that they're operating within reality. They understand that life is not easy.
Absolutely.
They understand that God has shown them some sort of grace by blessing them with opportunities, et cetera. And they're confident and they're grateful. And I think if you can be confident and grateful and you can somehow pass it on to your kids or to your team, that's the place you want to be. So I'm just curious, Bryan, from your perspective, Is that something that you've noticed? And what have you done as a father, as a dad, to try and instill that same thing in your kids? And have you thought that? Have you been worried about, gosh, I had it was work and it was tough, but it made me who I am. So I want to make sure I give my kids that experience. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Wow. Yeah. No, so much to unpack there because for one, I'm very similar to you in that I have two practices, right? I've got the very affluent practice in South Jordan. Then I have Tooele that is much more like your Elko practice, right? So I absolutely see what you're saying. These kids, they know how to work. Many of them, come right off the ranch to come in, to be seen for their appointments. And I do think for all of us as orthodontists, I think our affluency, all of us worked so hard to get where we're at, just like you said. And I think that is one of the biggest challenges. Have had multiple conversations with colleagues of mine about this same question you asked, and that is how do we instill that hard work ethic in our kids, and how do we, not ruin them by just enabling or giving them everything, right? I don't know if I've done a very good job with that. I try, like my son right now, for instance. I got a son that just turned 15. He comes and works with me 3 days a week. I'd much rather have him here learning to work than if you call it work. He's kind of the jokester of the practice. And I think
how old is he?
He's just barely turned 15. He's my baby.
That's cool.
Yeah, but he's like a little brother to all of my team members, and it's a frenemy kind of situation. But the main thing is I'm trying to keep him focused on something, to recognize that we have these talks on the way back and forth from work about it. I think I value that the most. We have I work 40 minutes away from. I live 40 minutes away from my practice. So we have a 40-minute drive each way, and we get to talk about life, and we get to talk about dreams and expectations. And we're able to talk about, those things that are important. And I think, with all of our kids, what we've done is we've always given them, they have to work towards things. They have to practice their piano. They've got to do their chores, all that, to be able to get whatever measly little allowance we give them. But then they have to live within the means of that allowance. And that's how I've done it in college too. I mean, I didn't have the opportunity to have my college paid for. I had to work all the way through college. And I think that that's part of what's helped me to be where I'm at, and to value hard work and to value effort. With my kids, I've given them kind of just enough to barely live off. And if they want to, during those college years, if they want more, if they want new clothes, whatever, then they're going to have to figure out how they do that, whether they get an extra job or that type of thing. But I agree with you. I think that is one of the biggest challenges we have as orthodontists, is to have the fluency and and we've worked so hard to get to this point. How do we not just hand that over to our kids, but help them to be inspired to greatness?
That's a challenging thing. And I mean, this is a concept that is really growing in popularity. Have any of you guys ever read that book, The Coddling of the American Mind?
No, but heard of it.
Familiar with it? Yeah. I'd highly recommend this for anyone. I mean, of course, I'm reading this because we have two young ones now, and I just want to do the best I can not to screw them up, at least in the ways that I can prevent. But this book, it came out in 2018. It's written by Greg Lukianoff. That may not be how to pronounce it, but he's the president of the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, which focuses on free speech and campus rights. Okay, so he also wrote this alongside Jonathan Haidt, who's a social psychologist and NYU professor. In this, basically, it challenges the idea that has gained popularity around, say, 90s and maybe early 2000s, that kids are fragile and they need to be protected from uncomfortable ideas, emotional discomfort, any kind of conflict or disagreement. So it's a lot of, we call that helicopter parenting or tiger parenting. But then this overprotection backfires. And when people aren't exposed to challenges or dissent, their resilience decreases. Okay. Their anxiety and their depression increase. Cognitive disorders start to flourish, such as catastrophizing or labeling. I mean, we see this everywhere right now. I don't think this is news to anyone. So instead, what they advocate is to think of our kids in the same way we think of our immune system, in that it's anti-fragile. It actually responds positively to conflict. So you want to let your kids experience failure, let them experience criticism and some of this discomfort. Encourage exposure to diverse viewpoints and difficult conversations. Avoid the trap of safetyism, the belief that emotional safety should be prioritized above all else. So again, I think that what we can distill from this, how it relates here, is that we need to think of ourselves and our kids as anti-fragile, not fragile. You want to protect them from the stuff that can kill them, or otherwise pollute their minds in irreversible ways, minds or bodies, that is. For many of these challenges, we have to actually expose them to it. And as orthodontists, where, our kids are living a pretty privileged lifestyle, sometimes that might actually take effort. For some people like Bryan, I grew up, we were not poor, but we didn't have a lot of money. We were definitely one of the lower socioeconomic families in our community. Part of that is because my parents always strove to be in the best school district that they could afford. And I mean, it was good, but it created, this fire in me. Of course it was. That was something that they did very well. But it created this fire in me because I always felt like I was the have-not. Now, relatively speaking, grand scheme of things, that's probably not true, but I always felt that way. And it gave me this fire to achieve. And one of the things that I consider is, if my kids are living in circumstances that are already so comfortable, where is that drive going to come from for them to achieve? Or are they just going to say, I could work really hard and then maybe make a fraction of what mom and dad make. Or I could just kind of play video games and live at home the rest of my life in this castle. There's a real danger there. And I'm not going to say I've figured out how to avoid that, but I actually think it takes real effort to expose your kids to the kind of challenges that are going to push them into strong human beings, especially when we have such plush conditions ourselves. Anyone have thoughts on that?
I agree. There's not exactly like a farm nearby, where we can do that. And I just want to say, it reminds me of a Pearl's post when you were talking about growing up on a farm and tending to sheep, where there was this assistant who was kicked in the face by a horse and lost her teeth. And she calls her doctor and texts him showing a photo of her busted mouth saying, "Hey, I'm sorry, this hurts, but I'm going to be there in like 2 hours. Like, I love my job. Like, can I wear a mask and see patients? I want to be there." And it's just, all of us are like, oh my gosh, our experience is the exact opposite. Somebody gets a little bit of a tickle throat and they call in saying they need like a week off. And so, the pro was if you could hire, exactly. So the pro was if you could, hire someone who grew up on a farm, do it immediately. And so I think, like, how do we structure that in Arizona where there's not a farm nearby? Some thoughts I had is, and this just came to me, I wrote it down. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to do something because my kids are in a video game castle right now and I'm struggling with that very thing. But I thought one thing would be like, okay, let's get up at 5 and go to CrossFit together. You got to lift heavy stuff for an hour, start your day with something that sucks. And then maybe that will build resilience. So anyway, I'm open to thoughts there, but I also want to reflect on what you said about branding your practice and the Horsley smile and all that too. I remember hearing from Stu Frost when you presented at MOPC 2021, always saying the Frost smile. And then when you're getting together in groups and you're, constantly showing cases and using that branding over and over again, I think that reinforces, the importance of building a brand and that you stand for excellence. So again, just kind of putting all that out there.
Hey Pearlers, check out this testimonial from Dr. Jacob Koch, a first-time attendee, on his experience at the MOPC and why you won't want to miss this year's MOPC at the Kennedy Space Center.
You're going to miss interacting with some amazing orthodontists, amazing team members, and amazing great vendors. You're going to miss experiencing just conversations outside of the lectures are really enlightening. I just had a great time. I actually have gone to a lot of vendor meetings that were put on with the product, and it was too much like showcasing perfect, pretty cases. I'm not showing the real world. And so a meeting like this, it shows the real world. It's not a sales pitch, the company showing you all their best results and hiding all the garbage behind the scenes. It's just real. It's real. That's how I can describe it. It's like a real meeting where there's real people sharing real ideas and real experiences. I like genuine. I like when things are genuine and it's put on by very genuine people. who genuinely want to make an amazing experience. So that's what makes it different. I've actually always wanted to come. This is the first time I've come, and I'm thinking, why the heck did I not come before? Because it's so many people that are like-minded like me. So it's been great to connect with them and connect and grow and learn and improve not just our practice, but our lives and everything we do. So I'm loving it.
Be sure to log on to orthodonticpearls.org today to register for one of our last remaining seats at the Mother of Pearls Conference this October 10th through 11th at the Kennedy Space Center. Register at orthodonticpearls.org today.
One thing that I want to just touch on that was brought up earlier on in the conversation is when we look at those, and we've got this signature smile that we're working so hard to achieve on every single patient. When we don't achieve that, and I see that in that, remember I had said that I moved that over kind of the doctor discussion needed, and we talked about what we could have done. It is oftentimes where we'll reach out back out to the patient and say, hey, we didn't quite achieve what we wanted on you. Would you be willing to come back in and be retreated for a short amount of time just to achieve this or that? And we do that a handful of times every year. Some of the patients, when we reach out to them, are like, we are perfectly happy with our smile. I don't even know what you're saying. And others are, well, okay, yeah. I mean, if you feel like you could make it better, then do so. And I think that they appreciate that. I think they appreciate that we really value that, that level of excellence.
Well, it's because you love it. You mentioned in your intro, sort of your background, your story, that you were shadowing an orthodontist and you saw all these before and afters and the confidence change, and that you actually love it. I think it's just a good reminder that we need to love what we do. And if you don't love it right now, ask yourself, can I love it? Is it maybe the way that I'm practicing, or is it the situation I'm practicing in? Or do I need to modify my schedule somehow? Or what do I need to do to help me to love this? Because if you love it, that always shows through. And because if you love it, you're doing the case analysis, right? You're retreating cases because you get as much satisfaction. I sometimes say to patients, like, I might care more about your smile than you do.
Yeah.
I might care more than you do. Listen, I get it. Like, and if you really want these braces off, or you want to finish the aligners, I get it. You're autonomous. It's your body, yourself. But, I really want to see this get as perfect as possible, if you'll let me, kind of a thing. So, I mean, I can relate with that for sure. I think a lot of us can. So I think we need to ask ourselves, if we don't love it right now, do we love it inherently? And if the answer is yes, then find a way to realign yourself with that. Make whatever changes you need to make, modify, or even if it's your mindset. You need to change your mindset. Like, get in love with it again.
I think it's so much about mindset, right? It really is. Because if you focus on the things that are negative in what we do, you can find plenty of those things.
Yeah.
I try not to do that. I focus on the very fact that we are creating these incredible smiles. We're instilling confidence. We're developing relationships. We are elevating people. I mean, I think I get kind of emotional when I think of, the fact that God put me in the greatest profession in the world. I love what I do. But I will say I've never had a job in my entire life that I didn't enjoy, but I think so much of that is mindset.
Absolutely.
It's just, it's looking at it from a standpoint of how grateful am I that I can do whatever it is.
Well, I think, referencing, a divine power, when you feel a sense of purpose, that this is beyond, like, you don't compartmentalize your life, because so often we compartmentalize, well, this is my job, this is my home life, this is who I am in my relationship. But we need to say, hey, I'm living my life and I'm part of something bigger. And the part that I kind of stumbled into is this orthodontic profession. And here's where I stand in the world in terms of my career. And here's how I can add value to the world. Now you've got a sense of purpose. Now it's not just like, oh, I'm working so I can get money. No, you've got a higher sense of purpose attached to what you're doing, because you're actually doing it. This is your life. Your life. There's a great Jordan Peterson clip where he says, your life isn't sitting on the beach sipping a margarita when you're on your vacation. That's like, 2 weeks a year or whatever, right? I mean, of course, for some of us, it's maybe more, we're fortunate for that. And for some people, it's maybe less, but your life is every morning, your wife, interacting with your wife before you leave to work or before she leaves to work. Every day when you get back from work, interacting with your kids, whatever. He doesn't say your dog, but I mean, your life is is your work. I mean, think how many working hours we spend of our lives, at work with these people. If we compartmentalize it and think, well, this is my work. Well, they're not really, this is sort of my work people. I don't really care as much about them, but I care about, my friends and my family. It's like, if you salute your brethren only, the scriptures say, then what are you doing more than anyone else, basically, right? So I think if we can say, hey, this is my life, how can I find purpose in it, a higher purpose, then our work can become more meaningful. But one thing I wanted to say just about, sort of going back to the kid thing, and Andy, you mentioned not shielding our kids from discomfort. And Chris, you touched on that, like, hey, maybe I'm going to wake up and have my kids get up at 5 a.m. and do CrossFit and stuff. So one thing I love is, the last few years is this image of the cross. I often wear a cross, a crucifix. And of course, I'm a Christian, so it has personal meaning to me. But from a broader perspective, it has a broader meaning to me. And what it means is, scripturally, Jesus said, "Take up your cross." And what I've learned to understand about that is the cross is a coincidence of opposites. There's a vertical section and there's a horizontal section, and that's kind of where you suffer. And so when our kids experience suffering, like, oh, I don't want to wake up at 5 a.m. to work out because why? It sucks. But on the other hand, well, I know it's good for me though. I'm doing something healthy, but I don't like it. That's the coincidence of opposites. The discomfort of, well, I really should do this, but I kind of don't want to. And overcoming that, rather than just choosing one or the other, acknowledging it, like, okay, I don't really want to, but you know what? I made a commitment, so I'm going to do this. Yeah, it does kind of suck, but you know what? That's part of life. Some of it just kind of sucks, and you just got to bear that. And you appreciate the good that comes along with that, because nothing is free and clear. There are always trade-offs. There's trade-offs to everything. We mentioned in a podcast recently that Mark Manson in The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F says, even a job promotion has negatives. It has more stress, it has more anxiety, it has more responsibility. But are those negatives better than your current negatives? Not as much money, less power, less autonomy, whatever. So anyway, I just think that's something that is important for us individually and for our kids, to realize that, hey, life isn't about shielding them, because if you shield them, the darker sides of life, like discomfort or feelings, they're going to have no experience dealing with that. So when it does crop up, why? Well, because it's life and it will crop up. They will be totally unprepared. We will have done them a great, great disservice if we make them complete novices in experiencing hard feelings and carrying the cross, dealing with it. That doesn't mean we can't be supportive, but we can't carry it for them. I think that's what Jesus was trying to say, whether you're a Christian or not. Just it's good wisdom. Everyone has to take up their own. And when you try and shield that for somebody, it doesn't work.
Absolutely. Great perspective.
Well, thanks for that, guys. Speaking of all of these relationships, and we're talking clinical excellence, I want to ask you, Bryan, about your experience with Premier Orthodontic Practices. Now, you are a co-founder there, one of 4, I believe. Now, I'm a member of POP, as we abbreviate that, or POP, and I've been a member for a little over a year now at this point. And what really drew me there was initially the purchasing power. You guys are leveraging the power of how many offices do you have in there now, Bryan?
So we have 180. We have 180
wow.
private practitioners and 350 locations.
So that's quite a powerful group that you have there. You have Scott Haley negotiating on your behalf. He's a former Ormco rep. I'm an Ormco guy. I know you are too. That was what drew me there initially. Some of the discounts on products that typically aren't discounted through Ormco. So that was impressive. But what I also really liked about the group is it's trying to fill in the gaps between private practice and the OSOs. So some of the resources OSOs provide are continuing education, a safe place to share ideas and drive our practices into the future. You guys just recently had an annual meeting in Deer Valley, which unfortunately I was unable to attend. It was right within the birth window of my son, but I'm really looking forward to seeing that next year. And I saw those pictures and I really was getting major FOMO there. So I'd love to hear from you. Tell us a little bit about POP. And what was that aha moment that led you and your co-founders to create Premier Orthodontic Practices?
No, great question. So, in 2021, if you can imagine, I mean, all of us lived through that wonderful time of the pandemic. In 2021, there was the pandemic happening. We had all these discussions happening all the time with all of my colleagues, orthodontic friends, about how they're dealing with certain, COVID protocols and all the crap that kind of came along with that. And so we kind of were in the trend of speaking quite a bit. All of a sudden, we hadn't really touched base. A lot of these colleagues had not touched base for a while, and then COVID hit, and all of a sudden we were talking all the time. Well, during the same time, a lot of my friends, my colleagues in the area in Utah, started joining DSOs. In fact, my brother even joined DSO. He's an endodontist out of Colorado, and so. Just like you were saying, I had major FOMO at the time. I'm like the king of FOMO. I never want to miss out on anything fun. And so I started looking into joining a DSO. And we looked at different options. And we had a specific DSO that I was looking at, along with the 3 co-founders of Premier Orthodontic Practices. So Dr. Scott Nord, he and I worked together for 3 years. Dr. Blake Maxfield, he and I worked together for 9 years. And Joe Feller and I went to dental school together. So this is how we all know each other. During that time, when all these colleagues of ours were joining these different DSOs, we started talking about, the pros, the cons, all that kind of stuff. And none of us, the 3 of us just couldn't feel quite right about it. We were all praying about it. We were all trying to figure out, the right thing. As we talked back, bounced ideas back and forth, we just could not quite get to the point where we felt like it was the right thing for us. But what we did recognize through the process of researching DSOs is that they have a huge advantage on us as private practitioners. They've got this collective strength that allows them to leverage their size to achieve better pricing with brackets and wires and peripherals and, all that kind of stuff. In fact, a lot of these DSOs are able to offer health insurance and all that kind of stuff as well. So since the 4 of us made the decision not to go down that path, and I'm glad that we didn't, especially with this particular DSO, the fact that we, had made that decision, we decided, hey, the aha moment for us was, hey, what if the 4 of us, who have 4 of the biggest practices in Utah, what if we came together along with some of our colleagues and friends that are orthodontists, and we leverage our size, our practices, the number of cases that we're doing, and see if we can get similar price breaks. And that's how it kind of began, right? We were all using the same bracket system company. So the first negotiation was with that bracket company. We sat down with them and negotiated a much better pricing. Then we went after, these dental suppliers, right? Like Patterson and Sullivan Shine and Dental City and those. And same thing, we were able to negotiate, discounts that would be helpful. At that point, we brought Scott Haley in as the CEO. You had mentioned Scott Haley has, decades of experience with orthodontics. He's our CEO. And we decided we're going to take it to the next level. We didn't want to just be a buying group. And that's how it kind of started, was kind of leveraging, let's see if we can keep our overhead, down by getting discounts from these different vendors. But then it morphed into something much, much greater. Like you were saying, we also started working on having agreements with different business services. One of the things we're working on right now is health insurance, and we're getting really close to hopefully sealing a deal on something like that we would provide health insurance for team members and for doctors, similar to what DSOs are able to do. So we're excited about that venture. And like you said too, we host this annual meeting every year. We had our first one at Deer Valley. It was fantastic, super exciting. We had 35 orthodontists come to this first meeting. We had amazing food. We got to ski the best snow on earth here in Salt Lake City. We brought in entertainment. We had a mind reader come in that was super entertaining and got people up on stage, and we had a blast with that. But I would say the greatest part of that meeting was we took some time for a few hours for the entire group. All 35 of us sat around in a circle and we talked about challenges. We talked about successes. We talked about pearls. We talked about all of that openly with each other. All of us trying to help each other, inspire each other, help each other work through challenges. Because someone like myself, I've been in practice for 21 years. I have a different perspective than someone starting out. So instead of you going down this road, hey, let me tell you what I did so you don't make the same mistakes that I did. And so there was a lot of this just brotherhood that was in this camaraderie that was really, really exciting. In fact, several of the people at this meeting were actually what you, I guess, would consider competitors. I have one that's literally a block down the street from me. And we're sharing best practices. In fact, we're currently helping him and his office manager through things to help them be successful. And so it's been fun to have that networking and be able to inspire one another in every way we can. We also have virtual study clubs. Our first real big one is coming up at the end of this month. And we will all we all have been assigned to a different study club, and we will be talking about the same types of things, similar to what you guys do on your Facebook forum. That is absolutely amazing, by the way. Thank you for making that happen. But it's similar to that, except it's in real time. We're actually talking about those things and helping each other out in whatever regards we can. So super excited about that. But yeah, Premier Orthodontic Practices has been fantastic. I'm so excited about what our future is going to be, because now we actually have vendors reaching out to us. We have vendors literally doing whatever they can to be part of this, and it's been fun.
Well, Bryan, I wanted to say, when I'm looking as, let's say, an American provider, you mentioned you also work with, let's say, American Orthodontics, right? I know that it was founded kind of with a group of Ormco guys, but what are some of those other, perks that you have, let's say, for someone who uses American and Angel Line or that kind of thing?
The great question. We have a ton of different vendors. If you look at our website, you can see, and it's constantly changing. I mean, it's evolving. We have all these people, like I said, reaching out and trying to be part of this, but we are in negotiations with a lot of other vendors too that will be helpful for you. But I think where the value is still, even being an American orthodontic provider, is in these study clubs, in also the business aspect of it. We have a marketing arm, a business arm, practice management arm, where we offer services to help elevate your practice in those realms as well. But it's exciting because a lot of these other, there are a lot of orthodontists in this, in Premier Orthodontic Practices that are not Damon providers, are not with Ormco, and are seeing the tremendous benefit that comes along with this. Mm-hmm. So I think you'll see that. We would love to have you be part of it. That's awesome. Yeah, I love the idea of having a group where you come together, especially that's championed for the private practice. Absolutely. Certain other buying groups, it's kind of, anyone who wants to sign up can, and where yours is more exclusive. You kind of you guys choose each other versus just, hey, go ahead and sign up. It's more of, hey, we want key doctors, people that are really driven to be the best. And we also have this buying group power, and we're also championing the private practice, which is, great. I'm a private practitioner fighting the DSO wave. We have the biggest number of DSOs per capita in the state of Arizona. And wow. Andy and I talk about it all the time with, how are we going to compete with, $49 a month braces and a free iPad when you start? Like they might come to you because you're better, but are you 4 times the cost better? That's tough for us. So it's nice to see that we have resources like this that can help the private practitioner compete with these rising tide of DSOs. I love that. And part of the requirement to be part of this is actually to be a private practitioner, right? Because it's awesome. All about that. It's all about trying to level the playing field, just like you're saying, and be able to decrease overhead and become, better clinically. And be, have an improvement in the financial profitability at the end of the year too, by decreasing a lot of our overhead. I love that. Thank you. That was very well said.
And I personally think it's great. So I'm part of a DSO and I'm part of private practice. So I actually kind of double dip. I have the best of both worlds, so to speak. That I personally think that the competition's great. Speaking of hard experiences make us better. Competition makes us better. Again, we don't quote unquote like it, but it forces us to become more than we would be if it weren't there. So, I mean, even just take like the aligner space. It's fantastic that Spark's, going. It's fantastic that there are these other aligner companies that are popping up, because it forces the aligner companies to compete to
Absolutely.
provide a better product, which benefits us. So I think, talking about private practice and DSOs, again, there are always trade-offs to everything, right? And so there are benefits to DSOs. I think even to the patient, there are benefits and there are drawbacks. There's no question about it. Of course there are. I mean, you can't get around that in life. There are always going to be drawbacks. And so I think it's great that this is happening. And frankly, I think that of course there are certain benefits to private practice, to the patient and to the doctor, of course, too. So I think it's great to have some healthy competition and have people putting their heads together. Well, it elevates the game. It's like, what's the phrase? Rising tides raise all ships, kind of a thing. So I think it's great that you're doing it, and I think it's super valuable. And at some point, if I'm not involved in a DSO anymore, which I think is we'll see what the future holds. But I really do love private practice, and I think this sounds like something that's really valuable for anybody that's in private practice, where you can kind of get the benefits of a DSO in terms of camaraderie, collegiality, buying power, health insurance, maybe it sounds like is coming, and that type of thing. And you get the benefits of private practice. So you kind of get a double dip a little bit. So
You do.
It's great. I think it's fantastic.
Well, it's nice seeing more and more orthodontists are returning, for the first time. When DSOs had the big rise 5 years ago, the 5-year, agreements expiring, and we're seeing big orthodontists like Nicole Wax just posted this testimonial basically of her experience of returning to private practice and feeling like she's herself again, and has all this autonomy back. And I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see that the trend is back toward the private practice. And I think that POP kind of gives you the best of both worlds, where I think most people sign up for a DSO with these ideas of having a group where you can meet together and talk about cases, having clinical discounts, having the ability to scale, basically, right? But then that doesn't always happen. So it's nice that private practitioners have this kind of almost middle ground, but you get the best of private practice with the advantages of the DSOs. So it's really a great thing.
It is great. It's thank you for your time investing in it. And again, I think a lot of the stuff that we do is driven by purpose and driven by passion. That's how the world turns, is believing in something. And obviously the higher the purpose in terms of, hey, I'm helping someone, it's more than just me, because we have my story, our story, like collectively, right? And then the big story, like what does this all mean? And I think when you can band together with people, you've graduated beyond the my story thing. Well, I want to do this because I want to get rich. I want to have money. Me, I. And you're saying, hey. Well, we can do something together. And you know what? If we can cooperate, we can do better together. Hey, it helps you, it helps me, right? And then I think in the grand scheme of things, the big story is what I'm doing matters. It's making a difference. At least I hope it is. I'm trying to, make a difference. And that's what drives you to do this stuff eventually. Because if it's just about money, hey, we want to do this POP thing, so we can save money. That sort of flames out when it gets hard and you've had a busy clinic week and now you got to do this thing on a Friday night or Thursday night, right? So I think it sounds to me like you have a passion about it that's about helping people, about rubbing shoulders with colleagues, about giving our patients a better experience, teaching each other, hey, how can we actually improve the outcome? I mean, those are all good things. Those are all, I would say, enlightened goals. Like we're doing this for, not just for me, not so I can make more money, not so my practice can have a better bottom line. Sure, I want that too, but so I can provide better services, so my patients can have a better experience, so I can have better outcomes. Rising tides raise all ships. I think it's fantastic.
We were at a meeting a couple months ago, and this one is like 20 times the level of excitement of the meetings that we've gone to in the past. It's just a really fun meeting. It's a nice thing to do for staff just because it brings us all closer together, and they only know the energy inside my own office. And once we get all these peers all together, the energy level is just madness. I have some Gen Z staff, and they're really excited about meeting the braces guy. And overall, they're excited about the party and the mechanical bull and the food. And it's really fun. And they go home really excited and ready to tackle on the day with brand new ideas and pearls and a lot of fun stories. I've been practicing for 18 years, and I'm definitely in need of some great pearls. And every lecture, I got 10 to 20 pearls from each one.
Be sure to log on to orthodonticpearls.org today to register for one of our last remaining seats at the Mother of Pearls Conference this October 10th through 11th at the Kennedy Space Center. Register at orthodonticpearls.org today.
Yeah, I think every decision we make as founders, along with our CEO, is always focused on what is going to benefit our members, what's going to help elevate them as private practitioners. There have been multiple situations where we, as founders, could benefit greatly from a decision that isn't in the best view of what would be best for our members. And in all those situations, we always look at what the members are and we go that direction. And that's what we're driven to do. And I think a lot of people, a lot of these orthodontists are feeling like they're on their own island, right? They're seeing all their friends join DSOs. They feel kind of alone in the whole situation. Mm-hmm. And this has been really, really cool and empowering and inspiring. I think and I had so many compliments, and comments after our meeting of just, thank you so much. This was so great to know that there are other people in this same situation. And it was so inspiring. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to inspire and to elevate these private practitioners and help them in whatever way we can.
I wanted to know kind of on the operational side of things too. You're partnered with Details, I think I heard from Andy, where you're able to use a system that makes the ordering easier versus, some buying groups, you basically are part of this and then you just do it yourself. Oh, I'm part of this group, so I get a discount. Could you tell us a little bit about the Details platform that makes it easier to order?
Well, what I think is cool about Details, first of all, Details will actually look at your practice. If you're considering joining POP, they will actually look at how you're spending, your clinical supplies and all that, and they will help to show you what they can save you from a standpoint of Details, but also what POP will save you, right? So the way the Details platform works is if you're going to order, let's say gloves, they actually search out all the different vendors of gloves, and they find the gloves that is going to be most affordable and is going to save you the most money, that are still the quality you want. Now, you don't have to choose that, but you can click on that and say, no, I want those gloves instead. So what's cool is I think for so long, I think even in our practice, we have this, we've always worked with Patterson. Well, it's just, it's too hard to work with multiple supply companies. So we've always worked with just Patterson. And so Patterson will have certain products that will be very affordable, and they'll have other with their maybe 4 times more than another vendor. So what Details does is then says, okay, are you sure you want your gloves from Patterson? Because you could get your gloves from Dental City and it could be this, and vice versa, right? It works. And so it's really, we're seeing tremendous amount of savings in our clinical supplies. And we'll also say at the very end, hey, this is what POP, this is what Premier Orthodontic Practice, what that discount saved you on your order. So that's awesome. Cool too, because you can see that we're making a difference in that realm.
And this is all done through a digital platform, so you don't necessarily need to have time to call the company, negotiate, say, hey, this. You just type it in. It compares all the companies or all the ones within that group and saying, hey, here's your best choice. Go for it. I think that just streamlines the ordering process, which again, time is the most precious resource we have, and for our team. So to make it easier for your team to order for you seems like a great thing.
It's huge. It's one of the more exciting parts of I think one of our more exciting partners, right, is just the amount of money it's saving all of our members that are actually utilizing that platform. The owner of Details actually came to our meeting. It was fun just getting to know him, and they are very committed to continue to improve that product too.
That's awesome.
All right, Bryan. Well, thanks for sharing so much about POP. I know I've been a happy customer. I'm trying to get these guys on board with it too. And I would recommend that anyone out there who's interested definitely kick some tires and see if it's the right fit for you. Bryan, how can they get in touch with someone if they want to get some more information on POP?
Perfect. Yeah. The best way to do that is to reach out to Scott Haley, Haley. His phone number is 651-301-9043. So 651-301-9043. Or you can go to our website, pop-ortho.com, and you can get on the schedule there to meet with him. At least meet with them. I would encourage people to reach out and see if it's a good fit for them.
Well, awesome, guys. Well, hey, we're getting down to the end of it, but I do want to wrap up with some touching on your travel, your personal life, and then we got to get to this BMW thing as well. So, following your social media, you've been all over the place. I've seen Japan, Denmark, Newport Beach, the Kentucky Derby. Tell us about what's driving this passion for travel, and what do you take away from these experiences?
Yes, I love to travel. If I could only spend discretionary income on one thing, it would be to travel. I love experiencing new cultures and people and architecture, food, history, all of that kind of stuff, right? I think the thing I value most about travel is I feel like throughout a lot of, like almost every week is kind of just survival mode, right? A lot of times. And travel breaks up that monotony. It breaks up the monotony of my life and of my practice, and it gives me a fresh perspective on what really, really matters. We just barely went to Switzerland for 12 days. I just got back last week, and I took my entire family. There were 8 of us. I'm going to have to work extra hours to pay for it, but there were 8 of us in a 9-passenger van with like 30 pieces of luggage. So we were squished in this little van, and the time together as a family, traveling through the most beautiful place on earth. Switzerland is so gorgeous. We traveled all throughout the entire country, hundreds and hundreds of miles, but here we are squished in this van together. We're singing songs, we're talking about life. We're, joking around with different things. I don't know if there's anything greater than that. And then, one of the highlights of that trip for me was taking my family and going up in a helicopter right up close and personal to the Matterhorn. We literally took this helicopter, and we were just, it seemed like we were going to land on it. But we went above the Matterhorn, and that iconic mountain, being able to experience that with my family. To me, that's what travel's about, is experiencing these incredible places together with people that you love. I look back at one point and I got emotional looking at the joy on my kids' faces as we're right there. We're right there up close and personal to the Matterhorn. So it's those experiences. I have so many of those experiences that will forever. And I pray always that God will help, me to remember those experiences, because they're cherished memories to me.
Bryan, yeah. I just got back from Switzerland with my daughter, and we went to Zermatt, and we paraglided up right by the Matterhorn.
No way.
We paraglided, and we ascended, and we're right there by the Matterhorn. It was beautiful, and it was
That's
amazing.
amazing.
I agree with you, man, that it's about experience. And so I would even say, like, whether it's travel or whether it's even like college for your kids.
Yeah.
It's the experience. It's not so much, well, I can get a job making good money without going to college. Well, you can, statistically speaking, sure you can. You're still statistically probably better off going to college, right? But even if it's not about the money, the experience of training your mind, and it's the same with travel. You're training your mind. You're realizing, hey, the world is bigger than where I come from. There are different ways of doing things.
Absolutely.
As I've traveled, I've appreciated the same thing. I thought, I love America. It's so great. It's got all these great things. And you know what? Seeing other places and seeing how they do it, they do some things quite a bit better than we do.
Yeah.
And it's just, wow, that's great. So we don't have a monopoly on it. Of course we don't. But somehow.
But your daughter's never going, that will be something that will be seared in her memory her entire life. How cool that you as her dad took her to do something so epic. She'll never forget that. And that's what it's about to me.
That's what it's about. And, there's a great line in Interstellar that I love, and it's stuck with me. Matthew McConaughey, is the star of that show, and he's, going to be doing a voyage into space, and because of, the theory of relativity, he's going to not age very much, and his daughter's going to age a lot, and so he's saying goodbye to her, and she's a little girl, she's 10 years old or something like that, and he's in his 40s, and he's heading out, and he says something like, what your mom used to say before she passed is, when your kids are born, the parents become ghosts for their children. And it's true in the bigger picture of things, like, yes, we live for ourselves in a way. I mean, yeah, we want to do things that we like and that make us happy, blah, blah, blah. But I think the bigger picture is, hey, this is all going somewhere. And I'm going to pass on at some point. And so are my kids. But you know what? Humanity's going somewhere. This whole thing is evolving towards something good. And so I need to pass on stuff to my kids, because that's my purpose is to pass it on. Why? Because then they need to pass it on to their kids. And we hope that this whole thing can evolve into a more enlightened, spiritual, human experience. And so I think if we can just recognize that really we exist to pass things on, and the best conduit is our kids. Why? Because we have more influence with them. We have more time with them. They can see the whole side of us, the good and the bad, the great part that, maybe our patients see, and the crappy part that maybe our patients don't see, right? And so I think that our kids are the best conduit for us passing meaningful things on that's purposeful. And so I agree. I think the travel is just fantastic, and it's a great, great opportunity. And, I just like you, I highly recommend, if you can take your kids different places. I mean, that's a blessing that we can do that we have the income to do that, and not everyone does. And of course, we have our, parents and our upbringing and our patients and instructors. Of course, we have all these people to thank for it, and we have to, I think, realize that, well, we didn't do it. We were partly did it, but there were so many, obviously, to get where we have gotten. It's required so much of other people giving their time, their energy, their resources, their love, their support, all these things.
Yep.
And so you just realize that if you can just be grateful for that, I think that's what it's all about.
We've also used travel to connect generations too. So like a few years ago, we took my parents to the Bahamas with our kids. I wanted them to have that one-on-one time with my parents. And I will never forget, it's seared in my memory, and same with my kids. But we're all sitting there with my parents who are, more elderly. We're on these tubes in the lazy river at Atlantis, and we're all connected, and the sun is setting, and we're all laughing, and there's just the palm trees and all of that. And just that experience to be able to connect those those generations too. We're very intentional about trying to do things like that, to experience those things and have my parents be able to influence my children.
Ultimately, that's what it's all about.
Yeah,
absolutely.
For sure.
Combining it with travel seems like such an idea. I didn't think of that. We always get together with like the grandparents and everyone, but if you get them together and then have travel as part of it, it just amplifies the memory. It amplifies that. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
A shared experience, experience.
Exactly.
It builds the bonds. And I think, to your point, Bryan, this linking generations together. I had a thing with my family this past Sunday. There was something at the cemetery. My aunt had been involved in a volunteer position to help identify the names of about 71 pioneers, people that immigrated from all these different countries to the United States, and they came to Utah as pioneers, religious pioneers or refugees or whatever. And they died poor, and they were buried in the Salt Lake City Cemetery in paupers' graves. And so they didn't have headstones.
Wow.
So my aunt went through and she found the names of every person in that grave, and she raised money, got the community involved to make a headstone memorializing all these people. And some people, families, descendants paid for individual headstones of their ancestor. One of my ancestors was that way. And you realize, like, okay, we're all linked together. We're all going to pass on. Everything's passing away. Everything is passing away. And yet it still matters. And we can still link ourselves through generations past, and we can link ourselves together in the present, whether we're traveling on vacation or whether we're at a graveside memorial in the present. And we're linking to the future by giving our kids experiences, because then they're going to pass that on. And there's something that's just, whatever you believe, I think there's something just mystical and amazing about that is a human instinct to link generations past.
Yes.
You see that in Moana, so many movies, fairy tales, stories, fables, books, whatever, that there's this inherent desire to link yourself to generations past. Their lives mattered. They may be gone, but they're not forgotten. Even if you don't have any details of their life other than their name. And And when they were born, you can say, you know what? This person experienced life, and I'm here partly because this person passed something on, passed on DNA,
That's beautiful.
passed on wisdom, passed on experience, something. And so you realize that nobody's an island. We're all, this whole thing is just this miraculous, mystical, unexplainable thing.
Yeah,
and it's amazing. It's amazing. So anyway.
All right, so bringing this back down to earth here. So speaking of travel, we have to talk about this. Bryan, now you're traveling with your family in a Land Rover and not that M8. What is, I'm a BMW guy. My last car, my first BMW was an X4M competition, which was like,
oh wow,
oh, love that. It was my favorite car. It's almost as much acceleration as these guys Teslas here, but it's an actual car.
Doubt that.
Almost is the key word,
pretty darn
Andy.
close. Almost. I'm pretty sure it could beat yours, Chris, but we never did.
Theory of relativity, bro. This is all relative, dog.
Well, at any rate, these guys, they're not. I don't even consider Tesla a car. It's basically like, it's like even remote controlled at this point, isn't it? It's like an RC, like you control it from your phone. Yeah, not a.
Remind me how fun it is to go to a gas station every couple of weeks.
All right, well, that's where now I got a hybrid. So thanks for that segue. So now I'm doing the X5 hybrid, which means I don't fill up gas very often. I love that one too. But dude, Land Rover, really? That's where you go with this? Like, what is the thought process here?
You're not the only one asking that question. I have several friends and my 15-year-old son that think I'm an absolute idiot for that trade. I had so my BMW is the M8 competition, 650 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 2.8. Just the crazy. I mean, it was such a fun car. But I love cars, and that's the problem. Is it's just I trade quite often. But believe it or not, the Range Rover is the one I always have two cars. I always have a commuter car, and then I always have a convertible. Yeah. And so the BMW M8 competition was my commuter car, and I always go back to Range Rover. This was my third Range Rover. Range Rovers have super crazy power, and it's like driving a mattress. They literally the most comfortable, luxurious cars ever. So no matter what I end up going to, I always go back to Range Rover, and then I try something else out.
Interesting. And I hope you're leasing this thing, because like a Range Rover basically bricks after about 2 or 3 years, right?
Yeah. And I never hang on to them that long. So.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we're good.
All right. That makes sense. And not that I can talk either. I mean, I lease my BMWs too, because I don't want to deal with all that maintenance that starts to happen after about 3 years. And then, Tesla twins. I mean, do you have anything to say on this? Do you understand like how cars work, or do you know how to drive?
I wanted to ask you what maintenance is, because I just have replaced tires and brakes. I think there's only like 4 parts to the car instead of 500. So
hey, Andy,
I'll take your challenge.
I'm going to borrow a line from Back to the Future too. You have to use your hands? That's like a baby's toy.
Yeah.
Well, I know that's where it's all going, but for the time being, I actually do enjoy driving, and I like when I had my M comp, it was like I was strapped to a rocket every day on the way to work, which is dangerous. That's part of why I kind of had to trade it in when we had the second kid. Part of it was space, but also part of practicality. I'm like I can't afford. I had a buddy who got pulled over in a Porsche, and he had a criminal speeding on his record. And when he told me the speed that he was going, and I'm not going to reveal that on the air, I was like, "That's it." So I was like, it's probably time that I pump the brakes a little bit there. Now I'm not in my Tesla phase yet. I'm not. I still have some testosterone left in the tank there. I'm not quite.
Well, Andy, you were strapped to a rocket. Chris and I were looking behind like, hey, cool. Nice of you to try to join us. You can speed up a little bit. Number one.
There's nothing like the sound of that engine
That's right.
And you understand this, Andy, with that M4 competition, because you start that thing up, and just anytime you put that, you're excelling like that throaty just sound. There's nothing like it.
Yeah, in the words of Terry Hoyt from the other guys, that tingling in your balls, feeling of steel butterflies in your stomach. Well, hey man, it was great having you on the show. I wanna finish up with just a couple of rapid fire questions. Okay. Favorite travel destination so far?
So I'd say in the United States, favorite travel destination is Nantucket, Massachusetts. So charming, incredible restaurants, incredible shops, amazing beaches. I would say outside of the United States, most charming place is France, best food is Japan, and best landscape would be Switzerland.
Beautiful. I love it. All right. Dream car, and don't say Tesla.
My dream car is a Ferrari 488 Spider, so the convertible. I'm actually in the process right now. I have someone sourcing that for me. The Ferrari, you probably see this on Instagram. I am a member of the Exotic Car Hacks group. So, the whole thing is about trying to get these amazing exotic cars. And at the end of your time with that car, you don't pay really a penny, or at least, you don't lose money on the car. Yeah. So that's currently what I'm doing. I'm excited about it.
That's sweet. I can't wait to see those photos and, maybe even come up and visit and take a test drive. We'll see.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
All right. And then most underrated part of private practice life?
I would say just the relationships that you get to build. I don't think there's anything greater for what we do than the relationships we get to build with our patients, with their families, with our team, with referring doctors. I mean, we interact with thousands and thousands of people throughout our career. And what a blessing that is to be able to develop all those incredible relationships. I mean, to be invited to weddings and to graduations and, quinceañeras and all that kind of stuff. I mean, what a blessing that is. So that's the most underrated part of what we do.
I love it. Awesome. Well, hey, Bryan, thanks so much for sharing your heart, your humor, and your vision, from helping shape the next generation of orthodontists to creating a space where independence and innovation go hand in hand. You're truly building something that lasts, and we thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if you're a practice owner and today's conversation struck a chord, whether it's vendor relief, peer support, or simply not wanting to feel alone in your journey, POP might be the right tribe that you've been looking for. Reach out to Bryan directly or connect with the team through their website or Instagram. Can you give us that contact one more time there, Bryan?
Absolutely. So Scott Haley, 651-301-9043, or go to our website at pop-ortho.com and get on the calendar there.
Beautiful. And if you're listening and you run a business, product, or service that serves the orthodontic community, our podcast and Facebook page reach over 9,500 orthodontists worldwide. Sponsorship opportunities start at just $150. And to learn more, just email us at orthodonticpearls@gmail.com. Until next time, keep smiling, stay curious, and please, for the love of torque curves, drive something with a soul. Not a Tesla. All right, guys. Hey, thanks so much.
Last year, we were fortunate enough to come as well, but I feel like that really set the bar high. And so then this year, I feel like everybody was super, super excited and thrilled to hear that we were going to be able to attend again. Like I said, the energy of this conference is just so lively. There's so much to do. Every detail is so thoroughly thought through that it's a blast. I was clinical. I kind of transitioned to admin. I feel like in every single lecture, no matter what team you're on, you can take something away from it. But then it's a perfect balance of we're here to learn and then also we're rewarded and get to do fun things. Especially at Collins, we all have really, really close bonds with each other. But I feel like this experience definitely allows us to make those relationships and bonds even stronger because here we get to have fun and really expand on those relationships. Dr. Collins always puts on a great show. At the clinic, we're so used to, our routines there, but it's fun to see him kind of just be able to let loose and just truly have a blast. Last year was USS Midway. This year was the house party at Dr. Teeters' house. And next year is at the U.S. Space Center.
Be sure to log on to orthodonticpearls.org today to see our lineup of speakers and incredible events we have planned for you. We'll be partying under a space shuttle. It will be absolutely incredible with music from the world's only all-orthodontist band, Relapse. If you've seen Relapse before, you should definitely come back again because every show is different, and this show will be out of this world. Register at orthodonticpearls.org today.